Tonight on Bridge City News, a jury has found a former SNC Lavalin executive guilty of bribing foreign officials and pocketing millions as he worked to secure contracts for the company in Libya. A new neurological treatment for MS has helped a Calgary man improve his balance. We'll have that story for you. And we'll hear the story of a Christian physician in the UK winning a victory for freedom of speech.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Paul Arthur.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Lethbridge police were called to an apartment in the area of the 3500 block of Sylvan Road South early Saturday morning at around 1 a.m. on a report of blood found outside and inside the building. Police discovered an injured man inside one of the apartments who was bleeding profusely from serious facial injuries. The victim has been hospitalized and police have arrested a suspect, but they are asking anyone with information on this assault to contact Crime Stoppers. A single vehicle accident in the town of Fort Macleod has claimed the life of the male driver. At about 2:40 a.m. this morning, RCMP discovered a small car that had left the road on Highway 3 within the town limits. There were no other passengers, and police continue to investigate the cause of the accident. A new report released by the City of Calgary shows there was significant demand for the e-scooter trial, with 750,000 recorded trips from July to October. Roughly 60% of e-scooter users traveled on the pathway network, while the rest used sidewalks and roads. There were 33 injuries reported. 32 were scooter riders and 1 was a pedestrian. The city says complaints ranged from improperly parked scooters, double riding, sidewalk riding, and not yielding to pedestrians. A Calgary man says he has improved balance and confidence since undergoing a new neurological treatment to battle his multiple sclerosis. Isaac Katakangas has been using a device that sits on the surface of the tongue and delivers mild, high-frequency electrical impulses while he undergoes intense physiotherapy. The hope is the tiny tingles lead to neuroplasticity and encourage new neural connections. It isn't cheap, though. Katakangas had to pay $22,000 out of his own pocket to access the program.
The Bonds has definitely helped me with balance, so I feel more confident and stable on my feet, and I'm more aware of where my body is in space when I'm standing and walking, and I'm able to catch myself if I'm a little bit off. So just navigating life is easier for me now. So getting in and out of a car, like getting around in a restaurant, just getting between chairs, getting in tight spaces, and that I feel a lot more confident doing that kind of stuff. I have not been able to throw away the cane, no, unfortunately. I'm actually using 2 canes or walking poles now, and it's less about leaning on it for support and more about just balancing myself so I'm upright. And that's actually another big thing, is that I am walking more upright, standing more upright. My quality of life has certainly improved, yes. So I still have fatigue, but it feels different now. Ponds is a huge part of it, but you also have to be very motivated.
Isaac has done extremely well with Ponds and the program here. We've seen a lot of functional gains for Isaac, and statistically all the outcome measures that we use at the beginning and measured through to the end have shown significant clinical improvement. So we're really excited for him. With MS, textbook tells us that it is supposed to be progressive and things are supposed to kind of deteriorate over time. So right now with the indication for Ponds, with mild to moderate traumatic brain injuries, it's supposed to be a one-time thing, but because MS is a moving target, we would suspect that at some point in time he would want to go through this again to kind of reset his system, his brain and his body again.
A second wave of passenger rights rules take effect today for travelers. This set deals with flight delays and cancellations and requires airlines to seat parents beside or near their children at no extra charge. While the rules state flyers can be compensated for delays and cancellations within an airline's control, they do not cover delays resulting from weather or mechanical issues. A number of passenger rights advocates say it's too easy for airlines to claim that a cancellation was out of its control, and the burden of proof then falls on to the passenger to prove otherwise, whereas European regulations favor passengers, putting the burden of proof on the airlines. A former SNC Lavalin executive is guilty of paying off foreign officials and pocketing millions as he worked to secure contracts for the Canadian engineering company in Libya. A jury found 73-year-old Sami Babawi guilty of all 5 charges he faced. He is yet to be sentenced. The company still faces charges that they paid nearly $48 million to public officials in Libya. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was found in breach of the ethics code for allegedly pressuring then Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to intervene in the criminal case and arrange a plea deal for the company. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he is disappointed by the outcome of 12 days of climate talks in Madrid. In the end, major polluters resisted calls to do more to tackle global warming, and negotiators postponed the regulation of global carbon markets until next year. Observers say big emitters like China, the United States, and India need to stop shirking their responsibilities. The wedding planning site Zola says it will no longer advertise with the Hallmark Channel after the network pulled ads featuring 2 brides kissing at the altar. The conservative Christian group 1 Million Moms had complained about the ads, warning the network would lose viewers if it caved to the LGBT agenda. A spokesperson for Hallmark says the commercials were pulled because the controversy had become a distraction. Critics say OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma, which is widely blamed for the opioid epidemic, is now cashing in on the cure. Purdue's foreign affiliate, Mundipharma, is entering the market for opioid overdose treatment. From Europe to Australia, the company is now selling an overdose reversal nasal spray. Officials say divers searching the water around New Zealand's volcanic White Island are dealing with unique and challenging conditions as they look for the bodies of the final 2 victims of last Monday's eruption. Ash and other fallout from the eruption has made the sea near the island toxic, and divers have to be washed clean after every dive. 16 people are confirmed dead, not including the 2 missing, and dozens remain in hospital, some with critical burns. A cape worn by actor Christopher Reeve in his first Superman movie is getting a lot of attention ahead of Julien's Auction's annual Icons and Idols sale. 40 years after it was first purchased by a consignor, the red cape hits the auction block on Monday and already has a lot of interest. Also up for sale is the famed Steinway piano that was in Frank and Nancy Sinatra's home, costumes from Star Trek and Ghostbusters, and a pipe used in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Freedom of expression continues to be a concern for many Christians around the world. In the UK, a Christian physician, Richard Scott, has finally been vindicated after a concerted attack against him by the National Secular Society. Dr. Scott sometimes prays with patients, and not everyone thinks he should be free to do so.
The GMC claimed that I'd harassed a vulnerable patient, whereas my intention was to help someone who was very needy from an angle that maybe hadn't been approached before. Unsurprisingly, they found me guilty and gave me a 5-year warning, like effectively a yellow card for 5 years, which then ceased in June 2017. Then in June 2019, this year, I heard from the General Medical Council again, following a radio interview I did on Radio 4 in January, where I talked about still sharing faith with patients and praying with patients. Then discovered 5 months later that some anonymous complainant had complained, having listened to my Radio 4 interview, they complained to the National Secular Society, who in turn clearly didn't like what they'd heard. So I now have 2 medical organisations, regulatory organisations, on my case. I wrote to them both, stating that in my view this was poor, vexatious, unnecessary, and giving them a chance to walk away. They declined to do so at that stage. So having sent my information in July, I then waited and only heard at the end of November from the GMC that they decided there was actually no case to answer. But the irritation I feel is we now have a generation of young doctors who are so scared to open their mouth for Jesus in case the National Secular Society, the General Medical Council, NHS England, or anybody else, British Humanist Association, complains, and would rather they didn't get a complaint because it can be very stressful. So this is the climate we're now in, and we really must stand up against these quite often malignant forces that are not helping our doctors and students and nurses, even more so, share their faith to people at times when we know it helps. Having had no sanction applied at all, my practice remains unchanged. to be honest, even after my first case, it made no difference to me whatsoever, because in no way did the GMC say you can't talk to patients about faith, you can't pray with patients. That was never part of their remit. What they said was that if you have another problem, if you have another complaint, then you'll be hearing from us again. In this situation, I've got no warning, there's no sanctions, no yellow card, no nothing. So I carry on as before, but once again with my eyes open to the climate in which we live. We have to remember, each one of us, when we come to the pearly gates, who opens the door? It's not the General Medical Council, it's not the Nursing and Midwifery Council, it's not Ofsted for teachers, it's not any of these regulatory bodies. They're behind you in the queue. It's Jesus Christ.
The outcome of Dr. Scott's case gives reassurance to Christian doctors and professionals across the UK to exercise their faith without fear of losing their jobs. Recapping one of our top news stories, a jury has found a former SNC Lavalin executive guilty of bribing foreign officials and pocketing millions as he worked to secure contracts for the company in Libya. And a look at weekend weather. Things are going to warm up this week. Clear skies overnight with a west wind gusting from 20 to 40 and a low of -7. For tomorrow, sunshine and a west wind gusting from 50 to 70 with a high near 0. Geothermal energy appears to be a promising source of clean energy. What are the pros and cons? Hal Roberts spoke with Kirsten Marcia, the CEO of Deep Corporation. That interview is coming right up. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Come for an amazing cultural experience. The Lethbridge Symphony Orchestra is presenting the famous oratorio, The Messiah, on Monday, December 16th at 7:30 p.m. at Southminster United Church, in celebration of the Christmas season. Tickets for Symphony Series 3 can be purchased online by visiting lethbridgesymphony.org. Come to the Shakespeare Meets Dickens Christmas celebration with a Tudor Victorian flair. This event is taking place on Friday, December 20th at 7 p.m. in the ATB Community Room at Casa. Enjoy a performance of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, followed by scenes and songs from Shakespeare. Plus, join in the merriment and sing along to your favorite Christmas carols. Traditional treats including mince pies, gingerbread, eggnog, and mulled wine will be served. Tickets are $20 and can be purchased at Casa. For more information, call Kate at 403-329-4568. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.